6:40, and time to invite you into our daily briefing room, where one of our leading tactical and strategic minds with years of experience at the highest level of military command shares some insights into the war in Ukraine. We're joined today by former senior British military advisor, Major General Chip Chapman. Chip, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, John.
Hi, Chip. Can I just start with the meeting this afternoon between the German leader, Olaf Scholz, between Emmanuel Macron, the French president, and Mario Draghi of Italy? They have all been together in Kyiv, which is remarkable, I suppose, in itself. And your thoughts on, well, what a challenge for the military of the various countries. They have to provide security for all of it and all of them. It's enough to keep, I don't know, their generals, people like you, up all night.
Well, the war has always been conditioned by three things, John. Firstly, domestic politics in each country. Secondly, alliance politics. And thirdly, perceptions of Russia. In at least two of these countries, the perception of them has been that they've not provided unequivocal support to Ukraine. So having them in Kyiv is a symbolic triumph, really, for Zelensky. And also, if you flip the coin, though, on the other side, you see that the Russians want to do something about that. And therefore, it's the warning or threat of an escalation that they'll cut off gas supplies to Europe. Now, actually, a 2014 EU stress test said that we would be able to supply gas or keep the gas burning in Europe, short of a full embargo of all EU-wide embargo of all gas. So that could be significant. But again, whether that is rhetoric from Russia, because there is a mutual dependency on the Russian gas in particular, where 73% of Russian exports go to the EU.
So when it comes to a general in the field, it's the job of a general to do the job of soldiering or commanding the military operation. They leave the politics to the politicians. But as you look at that lineup in Kyiv, Scholz alongside Macron, alongside Draghi and Zelensky in the middle there, how strong do you reckon that alliance really is? You've got people like Scholz in Germany, who's talking about backing up Russia, but quite slow, it seems, with the supply of weapons. You've got Macron, who says, look, Ukraine has to win, but let's not humiliate Putin. What's the truth and the strength of that lineup?
I think it's strong enough. And again, you have to go back to what are the grand strategic objectives of Russia, of which there are really two. The first one is regain lost territories and spheres of influence, even though the spheres of influence is a Cold War construct. And the second one is restore Russia to great power status. Below that sit the strategic objectives of Russia, two of which are divide and deter NATO, and the second one is divide and weaken the EU. So I don't think the time is right to sort of say that we're falling apart. And that's why I think this symbolic visit is very, very important. Now, it's the job of military people to tell the practical truth to the politicians, because, of course, all wars are fought for political objectives. They're not fought for military objectives. And so at the moment, you can say that the war is kind of in an attritional phase where it is a battering ram going on. People make too much of Severodonetsk in the sense that people say this is of strategic importance. It is not. It's rather like Saddam Hussein. It might be the mother of all battles, but you don't have mother of all strategies. So people have to be careful there. They're not taking very much ground in a daily basis, because the Russians are using artillery as a battering ram, but are kind of short of infantry, which you need to capture and hold things, which is why they've used other groups like the Wagner Group, their naval infantry, and the Chechens.
If we look ahead just for a moment, as you say, Chip, the purpose of war is to make space for peace. The purpose of war is to make space for politics. And people are now considering and talking a bit more about the post-war reconstruction of Ukraine. How important is it to get that right at this stage, while the fighting, even as the fighting goes on?
Well, of course, that depends on any peace settlement, should there be a peace settlement, and who wins, because you have a line, really, from truce through ceasefire to potentially an armistice to a peace agreement. So if Ukraine is forced to have a ceasefire which leads to a peace settlement which is unfavourable for them, then we could have all sorts of problems. That's difficult to know how that will go. We don't want to reward aggression by the Russians. They've already upended the the strategic construct of Europe in negating what happened from the Budapest Memorandum of 1994, which guaranteed Ukrainian independence, and the Helsinki Final Agreement of 1975. So, what is a strategic victory for Ukraine, and what is a tactical victory for Ukraine? And you would also say that for Russia. What is winning big and winning small? Now, we know that the maximalist objectives of Russia were actually to take over and conquer all of Ukraine. And indeed, Colin Cowell, the Undersecretary for Defence, yesterday still said that Ukraine still aims to capture all of Ukraine, but it doesn't really seem it has the combat power, certainly militarily, to do that. Now, one of the ways you could analyse that is that Putin's recent speech to the entrepreneurs, where he talked about Mother Russia and referring to himself as almost like Peter the Great and his wars with Sweden from 1700 to 1721, is ceding the ground to change this from the special military operation to a general mobilized war. Like all these things, we will have to wait and see, but you would do the planning based on that as a scenario for the future.
Right. Now, one of the positive consequences of the invasion of Ukraine has been it's added to the unity and solidity and resolve of NATO and the Western alliance. We've seen important commitments to increase defence spending by countries including Germany. We're now looking at Finland and Denmark looking at joining Sweden, looking at joining NATO. But equally, you look at opinion polls now across Europe, and they say that the public in various countries, including the UK, they want to see strong defence. They're less happy about spending a lot more on it. Is it going to be a continuing mission then to keep up the support for higher defence spending in the wake of this conflict? Even, as I say, it's still going on, but it's a challenge for the future and the near future, perhaps.
I think that's partly true. The first challenge we really have is this is as much a war of munitions as it is a war of artillery. And historically, the Western countries, NATO, have only really had 30 days of supply in their inventories to fight a major war. Now, actually, the Soviet Union, Russia, only had 90 days and don't rotate their stocks, which is why you have such a big failure rate in their missiles, because, of course, ammunition and component parts degrade in ammunition. So stocking up the inventories would be the first thing, or one of the first things that you need to do. We've already seen that leadership matters. The generalship seems to me to be far superior on the Ukrainian side, as does the way that they use what we would call mission command, local initiative, and tactical guile to outfight the Russians. But mass can have a quality of all of its own, as Napoleon said, and that's still what the Russians have in their favour at the moment.
All right, Major General Chip Chapman, good to talk to you as ever. Thank you for joining us in today's briefing room.